Maya had once convinced herself that security was sexy, that the quiet stability Owen offered was worth more than butterflies or longing glances. But now, 4 years into a marriage that felt more like a polite roommate arrangement, she was suffocating under the weight of predictability. Their evenings were a blur of reheated leftovers. Half-hearted kisses, and Owen's rambling monologues about server latency or some new video card he'd ordered. Sex was rare, mechanical, almost ceremonial, and Maya had grown adept at faking both orgasms and affection. Their bed, once a place of supposed intimacy, had become sterile and transactional, a place where desire went to die. She'd taken to pleasuring herself late at night, slipping into the bathroom while Owen snored, fingers trembling with a hunger she hadn't fed in years. In those stolen moments, her mind wandered to imagined strangers, men with rough hands, filthy mouths, and eyes that devoured. Shame lingered afterward, but only briefly. Mostly, she felt hollow, unfulfilled, invisible. She began to wonder if this was it, if marriage really meant trading lust for loyalty, electricity for enduring boredom. And deep down, a treacherous voice whispered something Maya could no longer ignore. You're wasting your body on a man who doesn't know how to touch it. The vasectomy wasn't just a medical procedure. It was the quiet detonator of Maya's unraveling. It began as a suggestion over a bottle of Merlot, her tone honeyed, her eyes soft with carefully manufactured concern. You know, I hate what birth control does to my body, she said, fingers circling the rim of her glass. Owen, as always, nodded thoughtfully, the dutiful husband eager to oblige. He hesitated only once, murmuring something about permanence, about the faint possibility that one day they might change their minds. But Maya quelled his doubt with a kiss, slow and deliberate, weaponized intimacy dressed as affection. She booked the appointment herself, drove him to the clinic, even bought him his favorite ice cream for the recovery. To Owen, it was a gesture of partnership. To Maya, it was a quiet triumph. Another thread snipped, another layer of control sewn into place. She told herself it was about convenience, about modern love, about freedom. But the truth burrowed deeper. She had never wanted to share her body, her future, her motherhood with Owen. She couldn't picture his awkward hands holding an infant or his sleepy voice reading bedtime stories. The idea made her chest tighten with something sour and suffocating. The vasectomy was her out, cloaked in logic, a surgical extraction of possibility. And as Owen winced through the post-op tenderness, grateful and unsuspecting, Maya watched him with a strange mix of pity and detachment, already drifting into the life she hadn't yet chosen, but would soon chase with reckless abandon. Joshua Cole arrived like a fault line beneath Maya's carefully ordered life, unannounced, unbothered, and impossible to ignore. He walked in her office wearing worn jeans and a fitted Henley smeared with just enough paint to suggest hard work, not mess. He wasn't classically handsome, but there was something magnetic in the way he held himself, relaxed, like a man who never had to ask for attention because it followed him naturally. Maya noticed him before he even spoke. The way he scanned the room like he owned it, the subtle confidence in his stride, the smirk that played on his lips like a secret he wasn't planning to share. When he finally did speak, low voice, unhurried words, it cut through the noise of her daily monotony like a blade. He leaned over her desk to point at blueprints, his forearm brushing hers. And Maya felt a pulse deep in her stomach she hadn't felt in years. The scent of sawdust and cologne clung to him, a raw, masculine fragrance that made her dizzy. She laughed too easily at his jokes, leaned in too close, but didn't care. He was everything Owen wasn't, edgy, enigmatic, alive. When he left, the air felt thinner somehow, like he had taken the oxygen with him. Maya sat in the silence of her office, fingers tingling, body humming with something dangerously close to desire. That night, while Owen rattled on about something tech-related over dinner, she barely heard a word. In her mind, she was already following Joshua out the door. The first time it happened, it wasn't planned. It never is, not really. One late evening, the office was empty save for the flicker of security lights and the faint hum of HVAC. Joshua lingered near her desk, sleeves rolled up, clipboard forgotten. They stood close, too close, examining floor plans that neither of them were really looking at. His knuckles brushed hers, and when she looked up, their eyes locked in that electric, charged silence that crackles just before two people cross a line. You've got paint on your collar, she murmured, her fingers reaching up before she could stop herself. He caught her wrist. Not roughly, gently, but with intent. Is that why you've been staring at me? He said, voice of velvet murmur. The space between them evaporated. His lips were on hers before she could answer, kissing her like he'd been waiting for an invitation he didn't need. It was raw and hungry, all heat and collision, like lust starved for air. Her back hit the wall. His hands roamed beneath her blouse. Her breath came in shallow gasps. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. He touched her like a man who understood what women kept secret. Maya felt herself unravel beneath him, moaning into his mouth, legs wrapped around his waist, pulse pounding in her ears. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't gentle, but it was real. And when it was over, when her lipstick was smeared and her conscience silenced, she knew something dangerous. One taste of Joshua would never be enough. It didn't take long for their affair to become routine, if anything so feral could be called that. Joshua became the shadow at the edge of Maya's days, a secret pulse beneath the surface of her life. Every text he sent was a spark, a trigger, a promise. Need you now. 30 minutes. Don't wear panties. She'd leave meetings early, lie about client calls, fabricate yoga classes, and wine nights with friends. The thrill of deception was intoxicating. Her body responded to him with a desperation she hadn't known she was capable of. Her skin flushed before they even touched, her breath shallow with anticipation. They met in hotel rooms with rumpled sheets and no small talk. In the back seat of his truck, parked under bridges or behind construction sites, fogging the windows like reckless teenagers. Once, they didn't even make it out of the stairwell, his hand up her skirt, her gasps echoing down the concrete walls. He never asked questions, never said sweet things. And that was the point. He didn't want her heart. He wanted her mouth, her thighs, her moans muffled against his shoulder. And she gave it all willingly. Owen, poor sweet Owen, was none the wiser. He still greeted her each night with tired eyes and gentle kisses. She let him. She kissed him back with the same lips that had been wrapped around another man hours earlier. And in those quiet, domestic moments, loading the dishwasher, folding laundry, Maya felt invincible. She had everything, and she was getting away with all of it. It happened on a night that felt like all the others. Dim bar lights, low music, Joshua's hand resting high on Maya's thigh beneath the table. His breath warm against her neck as he whispered things that made her knees weak. They stumbled back to his loft in a rush of laughter and urgency. Mouths already on each other before the door had even closed. Clothes trailed the floor like breadcrumbs. When he hovered over her, pupils blown wide, he cursed under his breath. Shit, I don't have anything on me. His eyes searched hers, waiting for the pause, for the responsible pullback. But Maya didn't hesitate. Her legs wrapped around his waist, lips brushing his ear. Don't worry about it, she whispered, reckless and aching. For the first time, there was no barrier between them, just skin and heat and that dizzying edge of danger. It wasn't love, but it was something primal, something close to ownership. When it was over, and she lay breathless against his chest, he reached for his jeans, pulled out a crumpled bill, and handed it to her without looking. Plan B, he muttered. She took the money, but this time, she never bought the pill. She told herself it was forgetfulness, fatigue. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. Something inside her, dark, irrational, wanted this. Not a baby, not really. Just proof. Proof that what they had wasn't invisible. That it left a mark. That maybe, just maybe, it could be made real. Even if it ruined everything. When the second pink line bloomed on the test, Maya didn't panic. There was no gasp, no trembling hands. Just silence. A calm so eerie it felt like surrender. She stared at the result like she'd known all along this would happen. That her recklessness had always been inching towards something permanent. And instead of guilt, what she felt was possibility. The baby wouldn't be Joshua's, not officially. Not if she moved quickly. Owen hadn't touched her in weeks, but that could be fixed. That had to be fixed. That night, she transformed their bedroom. Candles, soft music, satin lingerie bought on a whim and never worn. Owen's eyes lit up with confused hope as she pressed herself against him, cooing sweet nothings, pretending desire she didn't feel. She pulled him to bed, wrapped her legs around him, whispered against his ear, I want to feel you, all of you. He paused. Are you sure? Always cautious, always kind. She kissed him deeper. You're snipped, remember? What's the risk? And just like that, The door closed behind her lie. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya became a woman reborn, affectionate, attentive, almost radiant in her performance. She cooked Owen's favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, initiated sex again and again, letting him believe he was the reason she glowed. When she finally revealed the surprise pregnancy, Owen wept, called it fate, called her his miracle, and Maya clung to that word like a lifeline, praying it would be enough to keep the truth buried just a little longer. Joshua's reaction was ice. Maya had rehearsed the conversation a dozen ways, fantasized, even, that he might surprise her, that beneath all his rough edges, some part of him might rise to the occasion. He didn't. The second the word pregnant left her lips, his posture changed. He stood still for a beat, like a man absorbing an unexpected punch. Then he laughed, a cold, incredulous sound that sliced through the quiet of his apartment. "You're serious?" he asked, voice flat. "You actually let this happen?" She tried to explain, tried to soften the blow with talk of fate, of accidents, of how sometimes these things were meant to be. He cut her off mid-sentence. "No. What happened is you forgot the damn pill. Or didn't take it on purpose." His words landed like slaps. Maya's heart thudded. "You want me to believe this is some cosmic plan?" "No, Maya. This is you, playing house with a body that isn't yours to trap." He paced the room like a storm in slow motion, dragging his hands through his hair. "I paid for plan B, over and over. If I want a kid with you, I wouldn't have been handing you cash after ing you in my truck." The last word hit hard. Her cheeks burned. She opened her mouth, a plea on the tip of her tongue, but he was already walking away. "Don't expect me to play daddy," he said without looking back. "I'm not your solution. I'm your mistake." And then he was gone. The delivery room was too quiet. After the scream, after the final, trembling push, the world seemed to pause. No applause, no laughter, just a brittle, stretching silence that made Maya's skin prickle. Then the doctor's voice, forced and formal. "It's a boy." He held the baby up for just a moment, and Maya's heart sank. Hugo's skin was darker than hers, his curls unmistakably textured. Not ambiguous, not explainable, undeniable. "Brandon, no." Owen stood frozen beside her, staring at the child like he was trying to wake from a dream he didn't want to be in. His grip on her hand slackened. His eyes, wide with wonder only moments ago, were now glassy with something colder. Confusion, betrayal, realization. Maya opened her mouth, but nothing came. His mother was the first to move, gasping audibly and stepping back. Hand clasped to her chest like she'd been struck. "There must be some mistake," she whispered, desperation clawing at her voice. But there wasn't. No lab error. No freak genetics. Just a brutal, silent unveiling of the truth. Owen's eyes flicked once toward Maya, then toward the child again. His jaw tightened. He turned and walked out of the room without a single word. His mother followed seconds later, her glare full of disgust. Maya lay trembling in the bed, holding her newborn son, so warm, so innocent, while the cold crept in around her. The nurse adjusted the blankets, avoiding eye contact. No one said anything, and for the first time, Maya felt the full weight of what she had done. The months that followed were brutal. The divorce was swift, merciless. Owen had come armed with proof, emails, timestamps, receipts for hotel rooms Maya never thought he'd find. His lawyer carved her open with precision, wielding the betrayal like a weapon. She lost the house, the car, their savings. Friends vanished. Her phone stopped buzzing. Even her parents kept their distance, their disappointment simmering beneath every forced conversation. Maya moved into a cramped apartment with peeling paint and no dishwasher, the scent of formula clinging to the air. Nights were long and hollow, broken by Hugo's cries and her own quiet sobs. Dating felt impossible. Men on apps saw her profile, saw the word single mom, and swiped left. The few who didn't disappeared after one date, uninterested in a woman with baggage, and spit up on her blouse. Meanwhile, Owen thrived. She watched his life through a cracked phone screen, a new tech company, glowing interviews, and then a woman, slim, bright-eyed, hand tucked neatly into his. Engagement followed. Happiness radiated from every filtered frame. And Maya, sitting alone in the dim light of her apartment, finally stopped pretending. She hadn't just lost Owen. She had destroyed him and herself. In today's world of instant gratification, filtered perfection, and temptation at our fingertips, it's easy to chase the illusion of more excitement, more passion, more freedom. But lasting relationships are built on honesty, not impulse. If you find yourself craving something outside your commitment, pause and ask, is this desire worth the wreckage it could leave behind? Communication matters more than convenience. Don't weaponize silence or choose deceit over discomfort, because secrets rot trust from the inside out. Protect what's real. And if you're unhappy, speak up, leave with integrity. Don't destroy a life just because you're too afraid to rebuild your own.